welcome back to my channel and welcome to another day of Bookmas. If you don't know what Bookmas is or have not seen any of my previous Bookmas videos, I would highly suggest you watch those ones after you watch this one. For today's video, as I'm sure you can see from the title, I'm going to be taking you through my auto by authors, and if you don't know what that means or what that is, that's okay because I'll explain that to you as well. But this is probably one of the videos that I'm the most pumped for because I just get to talk to you guys about really cool authors. So yeah, if you're interested in hearing about that, keep on watching. Okay, so before I get started, I'm going to do the same disclaimer that I do in every single one of my videos, and that is if you hear my Great Dane whining or crying, she's not hurt, dying, or anything about it. She's absolutely fine. She's just dramatic, but here on this channel, we deal with it. Okay, so what is an auto by author? An auto by author is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's an author where as soon as you've heard that they've put out a new book or any new pieces of work, you automatically go and buy them, no matter what it is or what the story is about. You go and buy it because you love that author. So today I'm going to be taking you through my top 5 and probably only auto by authors. There's only 5 of them. So I'm going to be taking you through the authors that I automatically buy no matter what. Like, these are the authors where if they publish their grocery list, I will go and buy it. I don't care. So yeah, if that's what you're interested in hearing about, let's jump into it. My first auto buy author is someone where if you've been on my channel for pretty much the whole year, then you're already going to know who I'm going to talk about, and that is Elizabeth Acevedo. She is probably my favorite author of all time. She is a YA, my hair is just, it's going to do its own thing today, and I have hair in my eye. It's going to be one of those videos. But anyways, my first author is Elizabeth Acevedo. She's a YA contemporary author, and I absolutely adore her. She is the author of With the Fire on High, The Poet X, and Clap When You Land, which came out this year. Elizabeth Acevedo just has this way of writing that speaks to my soul. No matter what her story is, it's just something that I always grapple with, and I'm just completely engrossed in her ability to be such an amazing storyteller. She's got some of the most intricate characters for YA contemporary. They are so like 4-dimensional and just so well thought out and well built, and the growth that they have throughout their story is so amazing. I know that especially for Clap When You Land, everybody has been raving about wanting a sequel because we want to know what happens with the 2 girls. I don't want to spoil it if you haven't read it yet, which is just, I don't know how you haven't read it yet, but yeah, she also, I think another reason that I absolutely love Elizabeth Acevedo is because she narrates her audiobooks. I've listened to all of her books on audio, and hearing her tell the story that she's written, I think is absolutely beautiful. And she's great at doing audiobooks regardless whether it's her story or not. But especially when it's her story, she tells it in such a magnificent way where you want to listen. Like for Clap When You Land and With the Fire on High, I had to stop what I was doing and listen to both those books. The Poet X was really nice because it's a 4 or 5 hour audiobook, so I literally just sat there and listened to it. But her story for YA contemporary, it's just, I find that a lot of the times it can get very, very repetitive and very boring. But with Elizabeth Acevedo, she takes what would be like not that interesting of a story. Like with The Fire on High, it's following a teen girl with a baby. That's not news or anything new or just like completely out of the box. But the way Elizabeth Acevedo did it was just so beautiful, and you really got to deep dive into Imani's story and get to see how she, like, her internal struggles with it and how she gets to grow throughout the book. And again, with The Poet X, it's just a girl who discovers her love of slam poetry and is trying to break away from her conservative family. Not anything groundbreaking, but again, the way Elizabeth Acevedo does it, first of all, she wrote that book in verse, which was absolutely stunning. So that's one way to put a twist on a very classic idea right out of the gate. And then listening to her read her story in verse was so poetic. Like, it was absolutely stunning. Clap When You Land was a little bit more outside of the box because it surrounded a plane crash, which obviously is not something that happens every day. It surrounded a Dominican plane crash, which definitely is not something that happens every day. So I think it grabbed readers' attentions faster than maybe the other 2 books because the ideas are I don't want to say simple, but something you've seen done a couple times, whereas Clap When You Land clap when you land is not necessarily something that you see done all the time. But regardless, all three of those books have a unique twist on them, which is really nice. There's not one time where I was reading any of her books where I was like, yeah, okay, I've definitely heard this be done before, or like I saw this, I knew that this was coming, or you know, like you don't get bored reading her books, which is really, really nice. Obviously, you're not going to have that with every single, like there's going to be some similarities with YA contemporary because there's only so many different topics in YA contemporary that you can touch on, but I think it's so amazing when an author can take what would be a simple topic and turn it into something extraordinary, and Elizabeth Acevedo does an amazing job with that. So she will always be my number one author and my number one auto buy author. Like again, whatever she publishes, I will automatically buy. That is just how it is with me and Elizabeth Acevedo. My next author that I want to talk about is Nic Stone. She is also a YA contemporary author. She wrote Dear Justice, Dear Martin, and Jackpot. She wrote something else, but I can't remember the other name of the book. Nic Stone, her writing is just, it's so concise. It's not as detailed as you would expect for a YA contemporary author. Like, I feel like you either get authors that just describe everything right down to the color of the grass, i.e. Morgan Matson, or you get authors like Nic Stone who are just very concise and right to the point. And I feel like a lot of people find her writing to be very blunt and too quick, but I actually thoroughly enjoy that because I still find that she's able to get the story across in a timely manner. She's not there to take up, 6 months of your time while you read a book. It's get to the point, get the story, understand the depth, and grapple with it from there. And I think she does an amazing job with that, especially with Dear Martin. That was I think the first book that I read this year, or one of the first books I read this year, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really like that. I'm saying a lot. That's like, stop that. I really enjoy her writing style. I like how wow. I like how concise it is and how quickly she gets to the point. I don't think that takes away from the story at all. If anything, I feel like it helps the story flow in a way where you can keep up with it and you're not sitting there waiting for something to happen, because something is pretty much always happening and they're still very relatable. It's not to say that she writes in a way where the characters are two-dimensional or they don't get to go through any growth. They do. You're not waiting for it to happen. It's just happening in a way that is a consistent flow. And I really appreciate that style of writing. So I will definitely pick up whatever she writes or any type of works that she puts out. Again, like I said, if it's a grocery list, I'm probably going to buy it because you know what? It's going to be a concise grocery list and I could probably be able to follow it very, very easily. I wish she would put out a cookbook because I know those recipes are going to be straight to the point and very easy to follow. So Nic Stone, you should do that as well. My next author, wait for it, is a YA fantasy author. If you know me, you know that I don't get along with YA fantasy. In fact, we have a very strong love-hate, mostly hate relationship, but Trisha Levinseller has changed that for me this year. She is a YA fantasy author and she writes fantasy in a way where I actually find it extremely enjoyable. Usually when I'm reading YA fantasy, I want to read it because the story sounds so amazing, but as I'm reading it, I'm like, this is so complicated and so frustrating, but I want to get to the end of it because I want to know what happens to these characters. With Trisha Levinseller, it's genuinely an enjoyable process. Again, I listened to her books over audiobook, and I don't think it was the same person who narrated all of them, but regardless, the audiobooks were all amazing. I have the physical copies for most of them as well. Sorry, I should have said this. She wrote Daughter of the Pirate King, Daughter of the Siren Queen, The Shadows Between Us, and Warrior of the Wild, which I think is definitely, I'm stuck between Warrior of the Wild and The Shadows Between Us as my two, like, I don't know which one of those is my favorite out of her four, but I thoroughly enjoyed my time listening, like reading her books, and I didn't really think that I would because the ideas behind them are cool, but like they didn't immediately grabbed my attention until I started listening to them and gave them a chance. So I was pleasantly surprised with all of her books. Originally, Daughter of the Pirate King and Daughter of the Siren Queen caught my attention because it's about pirates and I love pirates. And Warrior of the Wild caught my attention because it's about Vikings, which I haven't read really any books about. And then The Shadows Between Us was recommended to me by another booktuber that I really, really love and respect and share similar opinions for. So none of her books really caught under my radar solely by me like looking for her. It was because I saw other people reading it or read other reviews for it that seemed like okay, but I'm glad that I found them because they're so good. There's a lot of, every single one of her books centers around kind of female empowerment, but it's not in a way where, you know, we're just gonna kill every single man on the planet. She doesn't do it that way, which I thoroughly appreciate. There's still like love interests in the books and stuff like that, which is really nice, but you get strong female leads, which was so nice to read about. And again, her writing, so her ability to build a world, like a fantastical world, is so good, especially for Warrior of the Wild. I think there's so many ins and outs of that book where it could have went wrong in so many different places, but she was with it the whole time and just kept it going in a way where, one, you could follow it because there's different, how do I say it? There's different towns that you have to incorporate in Warrior in the Wild, and you kind of have to picture the map for yourself. And I suck at visualizing maps, so I was a little bit skeptical going into it, but the way she explains it, you're able to pretty much pinpoint where every town is in relation to where it should be. So I was thoroughly happy with my experience listening to her books. Like I said, it was genuinely enjoyable and I really, really liked it. And I didn't think I was going to get that for every single one because they're all fantasy. And like I said, fantasy and I don't get along, but I can genuinely say I enjoyed every single one of her books. So whatever she puts out, I will buy. So my next auto-buy author is Angie Thomas. I read The Hate U Give this year, and she just, first of all, again, I should say she's a YA contemporary author. She wrote The Hate U Give, On the Come Up, and Concrete Rose, which is coming out early next year, which I'm very excited to get my hands on. Angie Thomas took a very timeless, classic, prevalent problem in society, i.e. police brutality, but wrote it in a way where I wasn't even expecting to read what I ended up reading. I think I put off The Hate U Give for so long because I felt like I automatically knew what was going to happen and I automatically knew how the story was going to end. But even if you were able to predict how some things were going to turn out, she did it in a way where you were like, oh shoot, that's a different way to put it. And I thoroughly appreciated that. First of all of her characters in her books are so well thought out. Even the secondary characters who aren't that important, she makes important in some type of way. She allows them to build and grow pretty much just as much as her main characters, which I really like. Or in some cases, they don't grow and they kind of stay villainous and still produce something relevant to the story. There's always somebody doing something that is relevant to the story, and I really, really appreciate that. I hate stories where you've got characters that are lax and useless and just there to fill space, essentially, especially in YA contemporary, because you get that a lot. You get that a lot in YA contemporary, and I really appreciate her ability to not do that. Also, I believe all of her books, because I'm pretty sure Concrete Rose is going to take place in the same world as The Hate U Give and On the Come Up. I love when an author can write books that don't have anything to do with each other really, but all take place in the same world because it opens the door for cameos, which I love. So it's just, you have to be a good author to use that same world and tell multiple stories out of it. So like kudos to her for being able to do that. That's amazing. And yeah, her writing style is phenomenal. Just grabs your attention and keeps it. The Hate U Give is like all of her, but I don't want to just say The Hate U Give, all of her books minus Concrete Rose, because I'm not sure how long it will be, but The Hate U Give and On the Come Up were a little bit on the longer side, but they're still quick reads because again, they grab your attention and you keep flowing with it, which is awesome. I haven't experienced any of her audiobooks, but physically reading her books, I was able to keep up and keep going with it, and I wasn't bored. So yeah, I was really happy with my experience with Angie Thomas, and I will definitely pick up whatever she puts out. And the last author that I have on this list is Tiffany Jackson. Oh my gosh. So I didn't realize that Tiffany Jackson was a YA thriller writer. I thought for the longest while it was YA contemporary until somebody put me on and was like, no, it's thriller. And I was like, that makes total sense, because her books have this very chilling element to it where I was like, oh, that's a little like, okay, ma'am. But for it to be thriller, that makes more sense. Also, Dahlia has just jumped up on my chair and is kind of playing with a plastic bag, so I'm sorry if you hear that. But yeah, she is the author of Grown, Allegedly, Monday's Not Coming, and Let Me Hear You Rhyme. I think she's the author of Let Me Hear You Rhyme. But she had my attention from Monday's Not Coming. That is a book where it wasn't, and I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't my all-time favorite book by any means, but the story that she told was so important and so captivating. It's kind of like what happens when society overlooks young Black women. And again, she did it in a beautiful, heartbreaking way, and I absolutely loved it. I listened to the audiobook for it, and I was a little bit nervous because the narrator sounded really, really young, but she killed it too. That's besides the point. Regardless, the book was written so beautifully and definitely had me at the edge of my seat on some points, which is why when I was told she's a thriller writer, that made a lot more sense. But anyways, I'm getting off track. Her writing style, very good. It's not necessarily to the point. There's definitely a lot of detail, and there's kind of a lot of roundabout detours that are taken. There are definitely some points where with her writing where I'm like, okay, you could have cut that out and the story would have still made sense, but it's not enough for me to be like, that took away from the story, which again, I appreciate. I don't mind the detours so long as they are not taking away from the story. So that was fine with me. I'm also a huge chicken, so her thriller, the fact that she's a thriller writer, but I didn't catch on to her being a thriller writer, was also really nice, because when I hear thriller, I automatically get kind of turned off because I'm like, okay, no, that's going to scare me and I need to sleep. I value my sleep. With Tiffany Jackson, I'm comfortable reading anything that she writes, knowing that, okay, I'm going to probably be a little bit creeped out, but still know that the story behind the creepiness is more important than the creepiness itself, if that makes sense. It's not a thriller for the sake of a thriller and there to scare you. There is a very important message behind each and every one of her stories, and I thoroughly appreciate that. So again, anything she writes, I will. Okay guys, so that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments down below who your auto by author is, and also don't forget to be leaving comment questions down below as well for my pre-filmed Q&A that will be coming up at the end of the year. I want to have lots of questions to answer for you guys, so it'll be super fun. But yeah, thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe before you go, and I will see you tomorrow for another Bookmas video.